Sometimes the hardest part of love isn't the fights, the arguments, or even the breakups. It's the moment you realize the one person you've held onto in your heart has already moved on. In the summer, I turned pretty, episode 8, that moment, belongs to Conrad. For so long, he carried Belly in the quiet spaces of his heart, believing that no matter what storms came, she would always be his. But in this episode, everything changes. Conrad faces the painful truth that Belly has slipped away, and he is powerless to stop it. This isn't just a love story anymore. It's the story of regret, of silence that spoke louder than words, and of a young man finally realizing that sometimes love recognized too late is love forever lost. To understand the heartbreak of Episode 8, we have to step back and look at everything that led to this moment. From the very beginning, the series painted Conrad as someone who feels things deeply but struggles to express them. He's the quiet storm, the kind of character who carries more inside him than he ever lets out. Belly, on the other hand, has always been the light, bright, open, hopeful. For years, she dreamed of Conrad, believed in him, and held on to the idea that one day he would choose her the same way she chose him. But things were never that simple. Jeremiah was always there, not just as Conrad's brother, but as the person who loved Belly with an open heart and never hid his feelings. Where Conrad's love was silent and complicated, Jeremiah's was loud and clear. Belly found herself torn between these two brothers, one who represented comfort and devotion, and another who represented mystery and the possibility of a deeper, more complicated love. As we move closer to Episode 8, the tension between the three of them has reached its breaking point. The summer house, once filled with laughter and childhood memories, has become the stage for heartbreak and unspoken truths. Belly stands in the middle, pulled in two directions, but also beginning to realize that she can't wait forever for Conrad to put his heart into words. She wants to be chosen. She wants to be loved openly, without fear, without hesitation. For Conrad, though, everything is different. His silence isn't just about pride. It's about fear. He's terrified of being vulnerable, of saying the wrong thing, of holding on to someone only to lose them later. And yet, deep down, he knows that Belly has always been the one. Every glance, every quiet moment, every unspoken word has been a reflection of how much he loves her. But love that isn't spoken can start to feel invisible. And to Belly, that silence has become unbearable. By the time Episode 8 begins, we're standing on the edge of everything coming undone. The audience already feels the weight of what's about to happen, because the cracks in Conrad and Belly's relationship have been building all season long. There's a sense of inevitability in the air, the kind that tells you someone is about to lose what they thought they could keep. And when that someone is Conrad, the heartbreak hits even harder, because we've always known how deeply he feels, even if he's never said it out loud. Episode 8 isn't just another chapter in the love triangle. It's the chapter where the past, present, and future collide. It's the moment where childhood dreams meet the harsh reality of growing up, where love stops being a promise and starts being a choice. And the stage is set for Conrad to learn one of the hardest lessons of all. If you don't speak your heart, someone else will. Asterisk, there's a certain kind of silence that speaks louder than words. And in Episode 8, Conrad becomes the center of that silence. From the outside, he appears calm, almost detached, but inside he's fighting a storm he can't control. The episode builds this tension carefully, layering small moments that reveal his inner turmoil. Conrad notices the way Belly looks at Jeremiah, the way her laughter comes easier around him, and the way her presence no longer seems tethered to him the way it once was. These aren't big, dramatic shifts, they're tiny, almost invisible details. But Conrad feels each one like a crack forming in the walls he's built around his heart. The real turning point comes not in a single explosion of emotion, but in the quiet realization that his silence has cost him everything. Throughout the series, Conrad has been the kind of person who believes that love doesn't need to be shouted to be real. He has always thought that Belly knew, without him saying it, how much she meant to him. But Episode 8 proves him wrong. Belly needed more than unspoken feelings. She needed to be chosen. And in failing to show her that, Conrad left the door wide open for Jeremiah, never hesitated to give her the reassurance she craved. This contrast is where the heartbreak truly begins. While Jeremiah wears his heart on his sleeve, Conrad's love has always been hidden in glances, in protective gestures, in moments when words felt too heavy to say aloud. But Belly can't read silence forever. When Conrad watches her lean closer to Jeremiah, when he sees that her smile lingers longer with his brother, he realizes that time has run out. Love that stays unspoken eventually starts to fade, not because it isn't strong, but because the other person needs to feel it in ways they can hold on to. What makes this turning point so powerful is that Conrad doesn't fight. He doesn't step in. He doesn't stop what's happening right in front of him. Instead, he watches. And in that watchful stillness, he comes to terms with the fact that he's already lost her. His silence, his hesitation, his fear of saying too much has finally caught up with him. There's no dramatic plea, no desperate attempt to win her back, just the heavy weight of realization pressing down on him. For Conrad, this moment is devastating not because Belly made a choice, but because he never gave her a reason to choose him. He believed their history, their unspoken connection, was enough. But Episode 8 strips that belief away and replaces it with a brutal truth. Love requires more than memories. It requires presence. Belly can't live inside his silence any longer, and Jeremiah is right there, giving her everything she once begged Conrad for. The brilliance of this episode is how it shows Conrad's loss without needing him to say much at all. His eyes, his posture, the way he stands slightly apart from the others. Every detail paints the picture of someone realizing he's no longer the center of someone's world. Because we know deep down that Conrad has always loved Belly more than words could ever capture. But in love, sometimes words are exactly what's needed. This turning point is the crack that can't be sealed. The moment where the audience knows things will never go back to the way they were. Conrad realizes too late that love unspoken is love at risk, and by the time he understands, Belly has already begun to slip from his grasp. The tragedy isn't that he didn't love her enough, it's that he didn't show it when it mattered. Most asterisk, every love story has a moment where the heart finally speaks louder than the history. And in Episode 8, that moment belongs to Belly. For so long, she's been pulled between the two brothers Conrad and Jeremiah, each offering her a different version of love. With Conrad, it was the dream she carried since childhood. The quiet, intense boy who seemed untouchable, the boy she thought was her destiny. With Jeremiah, this was something simpler but just as powerful. The boy who never made her question if she was wanted, who loved her openly, without hesitation. Without fear, by the time we reach this episode, Belly is no longer that girl who waits around for Conrad to say the words she's been longing to hear. She's grown, matured, and learned the hardest lesson of all that love cannot survive on maybes. And so, in this chapter, Belly makes her choice. Not in a loud, dramatic announcement, but in small, powerful ways that speak volumes. The way she reaches for Jeremiah's hand. The way she allows herself to lean into the safety and certainty he provides. These moments are quiet, but they carry the weight of finality. For Belly, choice isn't about forgetting Conrad or pretending. Those feelings never existed. They did. They always will. But she's tired of waiting for a love that hides in the shadows. She wants someone who will meet her halfway, who will show up for her without being asked, who will choose her without hesitation. Jeremiah does that. Conrad, for all his depth and all his love, has never been able to step fully into that role. And Belly, after so many seasons of longing, finally realizes that she deserves more than unspoken promises. What makes this choice even more heartbreaking is that it isn't born out of anger or revenge. It's born out of necessity. Belly has been patient, hopeful, and forgiving for so long. But love that isn't returned in the way you need eventually becomes a weight you can no longer carry. Precision is an act of self-preservation. A moment where she stops living in the dream of what could be and accepts the reality of what is. For Conrad, watching Belly choose Jeremiah is like watching his greatest fear come to life. But for Belly, choosing Jeremiah is not about punishing Conrad. It's about choosing herself. It's about choosing to no longer be the girl who waits in silence, hoping someone will finally see her worth. In that moment, she reclaims her power, her voice, and her right to be loved fully and completely. The beauty of this episode lies in how real Belly's choice feels. It's not the fairy tale ending she once dreamed of. It's messy, complicated, and painful, but it's also honest. And honesty is something she's been craving all along. No. In choosing Jeremiah, Belly isn't erasing her past with Conrad's shoes, acknowledging that the past isn't enough to build her future. There are moments in life that don't need words to cut you open. For Conrad, Episode 8 delivers that wound in silence. It isn't when Belly takes Jeremiah's hand. It isn't even when she looks at his brother the way she once looked at him. The real devastation comes in the stillness after, when Conrad realizes the war is already over. He never even picked up his sword. He has lost Belly, not in a dramatic clash or a final argument, but in the quiet acceptance that love, when left unspoken, can't survive. What makes this realization so painful is how understated it is. Conrad doesn't beg, doesn't chase after her, or try to rewrite what's already been written. Instead, he stands there, letting the weight of it settle into his bones. His eyes do all the talking.
Ow.
There's that flicker of pain, that recognition of what could have been, that regret. Of every moment he stayed silent when he should have spoken. It's a heartbreak not expressed through shouts, but through stillness, the kind of stillness that only comes when you know you're too late. The truth is, Conrad always believed that his connection with Belly was unbreakable. He thought. Shared memories, the summers spent together, the looks that lingered just a second too long, he thought all of that was enough to bind her to him. But Episode 8 forces him to confront a brutal truth. History alone cannot compete with presence. Jeremiah showed up. He loved her out loud. He gave her what Conrad never did, the assurance that she was wanted, without hesitation, without fear. And Conrad, for all his depth and feeling, stayed hidden behind walls that no one could climb. The scene plays out almost like sand slipping through his fingers. The more he tries to hold on to the thought of Belly being his, the more he realizes that she has already chosen a different path. What's left behind is only the ache of missed chances. The audience feels this ache with him because we know the love was real. We've seen it in every unspoken glance and every quiet act of care. But in love, timing is everything. And for Conrad, the timing was never right. This realization also carries a deeper layer. It isn't just about Belly. It's about Conrad confronting himself. For the first time, he sees how his fear of vulnerability cost him the one person he never wanted to lose. He sees how silence can wound more deeply than words ever could. And in that painful clarity, he begins to understand that love demands risk. The risk of rejection, the risk of being seen, the risk of stepping fully into the light. By refusing to take that risk, he guaranteed his own heartbreak. Episode 8 leaves us with the image of a young man standing in the shadow of what could have been. Conrad doesn't lash out at Jeremiah. He doesn't place blame on Belly. Instead, he accepts the weight of his loss, shoulders it quietly, and lets it sink into him. It's a mature kind of heartbreak, the kind that doesn't come with fireworks, but with the hollow sound of silence after the door has already closed. And that is what makes this realization so powerful. It's not loud, it's not showy, but it's unforgettable. Because every viewer can feel the sting of it, the tragedy of recognizing love too late. The pain of seeing someone you adore find happiness in arms that aren't yours. Conrad's story in this episode isn't about anger or rivalry. It's about regret. Pure, unshakable regret. And in that moment, we see him not just as Belly's first love, but as a boy learning the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes the people we love most slip away, not because we didn't love them enough, but because we didn't love them out loud when we had the chance. The aftermath of Episode 8 lingers like a shadow, quiet, heavy, and impossible to ignore. For Conrad, losing Belly isn't just the end of a romance. It's the shattering of a dream he's carried since childhood. All those summers, all those memories, All those fleeting moments where it felt like destiny was pulling them together suddenly. They collapse under the weight of silence and missed chances. It's not the kind of heartbreak that comes and goes quickly. It's the kind that reshapes a person, the kind that makes them look in the mirror and see someone entirely different. What makes this loss so powerful is the symbolism behind it. Belly choosing Jeremiah isn't simply about one brother winning and the other losing. It represents the difference between a love that hides and a love that shows up. Jeremiah symbolizes the here and now, the certainty of someone who won't make her wait, who will stand beside her openly. Conrad, on the other hand, represents the fragility of unspoken love, the idea that sometimes, no matter how deep your feelings run, if you don't voice them, they become invisible. Belly's decision is bigger than a romantic choice. It's a statement about what love needs to survive: clarity, action, and presence. For viewers, Conrad's journey in this episode becomes more than just a story of heartbreak. It becomes a mirror. How many of us have held back our feelings, believing the other person already knows? How many of us have lost someone not because we didn't care, but because we didn't show it when it mattered most? Conrad embodies that universal truth. Love left unspoken will eventually slip through your fingers, no matter how tightly you thought you were holding on. But episode 8 doesn't just end with Conrad's pain, it also sets the stage for his growth. The heartbreak he feels forces him to confront the way he loves. It pushes him to realize that vulnerability isn't weakness, and silence isn't strength. If he wants to love and to be loved, he has to learn to step out of the shadows and into the light. Belly's choice becomes a lesson, one written in loss, that will shape the man Conrad is meant to become. The symbolism also stretches beyond the love triangle, speaks to the bittersweet transition from youth into adulthood. Summers, once carefree and filled with laughter, are no longer just about fun. They're about choices, consequences, and the reality that not every love lasts forever. The summer house becomes more than a backdrop. It becomes a symbol of innocence lost, of memories that can never be recaptured in the same way. When Conrad realizes he's lost Belly, he's also realizing that a part of his youth, a part of his innocence, is gone too. And yet there's beauty in the tragedy. Because even in losing Belly, Conrad's story reminds us that love is never wasted. Every feeling, every memory, every unspoken glance, they all matter. They all shape who we become. Conrad's heartbreak may be painful, but it's also transformative. It teaches him and us that sometimes the greatest growth comes not from winning love, but from losing it and learning what we must change within ourselves. As the credits roll on episode 8, we're left with a bittersweet truth: Conrad's love for Belly was real, powerful, and unforgettable, but it wasn't enough to hold on to her. And that is the cruel, beautiful irony of love. Sometimes the strongest feelings in the world still aren't enough without action. Conrad's silence was his undoing, and Belly's choice was her liberation. Together, they create a moment that will be remembered not just as the climax of a love triangle, but as a universal lesson in the cost of waiting too long to say what's in your heart. Heartbreak doesn't end with a single moment, it lingers, it echoes, and it shapes what comes next. For Conrad, episode 8 isn't just about realizing that he lost Belly. It's about standing at a crossroads where his choices moving forward will define who he becomes. This moment is a fracture point in his story. He can either let the pain harden him, pushing him deeper into the silence and walls he has always built around himself, or he can allow it to break him open, teaching him how to finally let love in fully and fearlessly slide. The beauty of this series is that it never treats heartbreak as the end of the road. Instead, it shows how heartbreak becomes a teacher. For Conrad, Belly choosing Jeremiah forces him to confront a reality he's been avoiding for years. Love is not enough if you don't show up for it. He can no longer rely on memories, glances, and the safety of unspoken words. If he wants love in the future, whether with Belly or someone else, he has to change the way he moves through the world. This loss may have closed one chapter, but it is also the beginning of another. What's more, Belly's choice reshapes not just Conrad's journey, but the entire dynamic between the brothers. The Fisher family has always been complicated. bound by loyalty, love, and rivalry. Now, with Jeremiah stepping into the role of Belly's chosen partner, Conrad must learn how to live with that reality without letting it consume him. The test of his character will not be whether he can win Belly back, it will be whether he can accept her decision and still love his brother, still protect the bond that has defined his life since childhood. The symbolism here is striking. Conrad's heartbreak becomes a metaphor for the painful transition into adulthood. Life doesn't always give us the happy endings we dream of. Sometimes the people we thought we couldn't live without choose another path. But growing up means learning how to let go with grace, how to carry the weight of loss without letting it crush us, and how to find strength in the spaces where our dreams used to be. Conrad's journey after episode 8 is about learning this lesson, one that every viewer can relate to in their own way, and yet even in his pain there's a glimmer of hope. Because heartbreak, as devastating as it is, can also be freeing. By losing Belly, Conrad is forced to confront himself, to ask the questions he's always avoided. Why did he stay silent? Why did he let fear control him? Why did he believe that love could survive without words? These questions won't have easy answers, but they will push him to grow.